In Malaysia, we have more than 400,000 people suffering from hepatitis C. It is a major public health concern.
然后就经过医生的讲解给我听了，然后他说这个肝炎病是很严重的，它会肝硬化，然后就变成 cancer 就死了的这样子。然后有一个小小愿望啦，就是说看这里啊能不能变成做那个民宿啊。可以来这边休息，然后有自己的菜罢了，就可以自己炒自己煮。但是不知道这个愿望能成功吗啦
？Hepatitis C is basically a virus. Primarily, it will affect your liver.
It's sometimes called the silent disease because people with the disease don't know they've had the infection. And it's only many years later that some of them develop cirrhosis, liver cirrhosis, or liver cancer.
然后我就问他说：“这样有没有药可以医治？”医生就讲有咯。然后第一批药，医生给我是和打针的啦，药源吃跟打针的。
The treatment in the past is so, well, I would say horrible to a certain extent and perhaps toxic because we were dealing with the treatment like interferon before and ribavirin.
And the treatment was also for a very long duration and the cure rate was also very low.
没有吃了这个药啊，5个月，医生在 test 啦，抽血 test 了，说我对我这个身体没有效果啊，他说我的 virus 还有存在啦，在我体内，只是医生跟我讲说，就是等新的药进来罢了啦，外国的新药进来马来西亚，然后就等，一等就是等超过已经10年了。
There's actually a revolution treatment in hepatitis C, the DAA.
When the DAA came in, that was sometimes in 2015, I think, to Malaysia. And it's a major breakthrough.
But the issue is the cost. It's very expensive. And not many people can have access to the treatment.
DNDi, or Drugs for Neglected Disease Initiatives, is a non-profit organization and it works to get treatment for neglected population. When DNDi was studying the DAA landscape, they came across ravidasvir. And we also found out that an Egyptian company, pharmaceutical company, Pharco, had done a clinical trial using ravidasvir and the results were very promising. Following this, DNDi, together with the Ministry of Health in Malaysia and the Ministry of Public Health in Thailand, conducted a clinical trial on the safety and efficacy of ravidasvir. We had a 97% efficacy, which made it comparable to the other DAAs. And these are better tolerated by the patient, it has fewer side effects, and it had a better cure rate. A project of this magnitude and complexity requires a number of partners.
So together with agencies and other societies, you can make the impossible possible.
For all of us who have been involved, we're extremely excited that now there is a treatment option, an affordable treatment option for people with the infection.
Now we can tell the patient now, I have the treatment for you right now because you all have been waiting. We also been waiting, but now we have the treatment for you. Almost 100% of those patients who've been treated on this clinical trial clear the virus.
Well, the targets of WHO is to end hepatitis C in 2030. The question is how to achieve that goal.
Our part now is that we should try as much as possible to get as many people as possible to be screened, and those who are tested positive should be accessed for treatment.
开始吃第二批新药的时候啊，吃3个月，3个月，但是好消息来说，我的肝病好了，我的肝炎啊已经降到0了，没有了。然后我就也有很开心啦，知道说我的病这个疾病啊，肝炎病已经好了嘛。然后他们妈妈也跟他们说他 OK 了他。
When I reflect back, it could be like a magical journey to me. No doubt that we have challenges, we have lots of problem issues along the way. This is worth an effort. This is so fulfilling and gratifying. We were going to walk through this journey together until the finishing line.
For a very exciting world premiere of the documentary Waiting for the Cure, a very, very important, coverage of a very important silent killer that we have to address globally, not just in our country. So, Assalamualaikum and very, very good morning to dear hardworking frontline journalists, dear esteemed panelists and celebrated online guests. We are gathered here today, not just for Malaysia, but for the world over, because a new global breakthrough has just been told, and it's a breaking news to all of us. And, not that the cure is not there, but the cure is there, but we can't assess it. In terms of that, today is the press conference that will tell you more. After about 10 days ago, you've heard the breaking news that ravidasvir is the new drug that can help give affordable treatment, the first ever developed by South-South Corporation to over 58 million affected patients around the world. Before this, there was a cure, but it's too high in terms of price to be reached by many, especially those in the lower and middle income country, including Malaysia. And we have about 400,000 patients suffering from hepatitis C. Later, I will introduce you to the doctors and to the people who have been frustrated for years because they have to treat these patients, but they don't have a very effective drug. Then when they have it, they can't give to all, only a few, because it's too expensive for us to bear. That's why the treatment before was called the $1,000 pill. Imagine that for a set of treatment, it can go all the way in Malaysian ringgit, the price of a bungalow in our country. What crime is that when there is a cure and this is a sickness that can give you cirrhosis, can harden your liver and even lead to carcinoma or cancer, the big C. So this is the story to be proud of, not only for Malaysians, but people the world over who want accessible treatment for the human right of getting better health, developed through breaking the shackles of monopoly and done by the people of the South and South Cooperation. From non-profit organizations to governments, to hospitals, to civil society, to NGOs. Why is this news so important, you might ask? Hepatitis C is a virus transmitted through blood, nicknamed the silent killer, because people often don't even know that they have it. And it's overlooked because of that. It's undiagnosed. It can lead to chronic liver disease, cirrhosis, cancer, and of course, death. 400,000 infected in Malaysia, 300,000 people worldwide every year. That's the death toll from this. So if 58 million people are affected, but it's the South that came out with the answer. That means right now there's about 87% of the 58 million that do not have a chance to get affordable treatment. But now, with the breaking news 10 days ago, announced by no one else but our very important person in Malaysia through his Twitter, I'm glad I followed him, and Tan Sri DJ Hisham, we will introduce you to him later. So I would like to start with this quote from the great physician of all, Hippocrates. Wherever the art of medicine is loved, there is also a love of humanity. But where is the humanity if there is a cure, but people can't just get it? Only the selected privileged people can have it. And through Malaysia's participation in the South-South Cooperation, we have broken that shackle. Now, we can roll out effective treatment to all for hepatitis C. What is outrageous about the silent pandemic is that effective, safe, and well-tolerated drugs, technically they are called DAAs or direct-acting antivirals. You will hear more about this from the experts later. That could cure everybody. But $84,000 is just out of the window. Nobody will even try to get that if they are struggling for day-to-day existence. Now, why this story is so important? You've seen in the video just now of this muscle throughout the body, you know, rippling, very hardworking. And I'm from the South, the rice bowl of the nation. And you can see paddy, vegetables being grown there from dawn to dusk, the toil being done. But Saudara Huang, Mr. Huang, for years, more than a decade, he was suffering from hepatitis C, you know. Then suddenly, he can't even, my grandparents were paddy farmers and they work so hard, that's their pride. They might not have much money, but that's their pride. But the moment they can't use their hands and feet to work, to get livelihood for the family, and not only that, Mr. Huang can't even dream of having a next generation because the virus is in his body. But thanks to superheroes that you will be introduced to later, like they have one in Alusta for that I will introduce to you later also, and he was put in a clinical trial, and that was enabled because of the South-South Cooperation. And not only is he not worried about himself, not worried about having children, you can see in the video the ear-to-ear smile. I understand Mayo, but I understand also Bo Liao. I can imagine when he asked the doctor the results of his taking the medicine, Bo Liao, no more virus. So that's very good. But how do we do this? This is the story today in this press conference because the initiative of many people globally, from the generic drug makers of Pharco, whose representatives are staying up all through the night, is what, 6 hours behind right now in Egypt, and they're about 3 o'clock in the morning, but they are here because this is the world first. And we've done this without the favorite of the big pharma or the developed nations. And the drug, the molecule we're talking about is called ravidasvir. And you can see the famous Tan Sri DJ Noor Hisham's Twitter 10 days ago on this, and press releases were also released to you, the members of the press. And I would like to recap that this new treatment combination for hepatitis C will be an additional affordable option for the millions of people still waiting for access and life-saving treatment. WHO, World Health Organization, have a target to, do away with hepatitis C because we have the means for it by 2030. Which country stands the most to be able to do this if we all work together, have political will, and work hard? It might be Malaysia right at the front. And we want our friends in Egypt also, and we will hear from them later to do on this. The panelists that have been assembled, first in line, we will hear from him the stories from behind, and officially, it's not easy to put a multilateral South-South cooperation together at the same time, ensuring that people on the ground, people from the north of Malaysia, people from Sarawak, from Sabah, anywhere they are in Malaysia, if they have hepatitis C, they can be screened and they can be treated. We will hear from Dr. Noor Hisham why this can be done now and what we have done. But of course, after all the administration to implement treatment and diagnostic testing and taking part in this remarkable South-South effort, which is a new model for the world, and we have to hear the human side too. What about the doctor that have to face these patients day by day? And many of them bringing with them their human and family suffering to the doctor. And Dato Dr. Radzi is another person who will give us, because he is the leading hepatologist and was a clinician involved in the clinical trial, he will give us from the human story right up until how everything comes together. And clinical trial is a very, very complex process. It's very well regulated, and Malaysia has been able to do this together. And then, of course, if we alone say it, then this is not a global play. So the global partners are also represented. Jean-Michel, the director of East Asia Office of Drug for Neglected Diseases Initiative, or DNDi, which coordinated the partners and led the trial. He will also be sharing the insights of all this. And then, of course, there must be a registration. There must be the tedious process of checking all the documents, making everything perfect and safe. And that's Saudari Sharifah from Pharmaniaga, who are giving us the toxicology, the pharmacokinetics. But don't worry, it's just convincing us that everything has been done to order. That's why they managed to get the registration done. And of course, 6 hours behind us, thank you so much for still staying up, Dr. Sherine, the CEO of the drug maker Pharco, also a generic drug maker, just like Pharmaniaga, who owns the chemical compound. And they have ensured that when they license this, it's not for profit, but for people. That's very important. And then it's available to us also, like Malaysia, our good partners. So we will hear from him also. And last but not least, I just want to repeat this again, as well as being safe and effective treatment, ravidasvir, this new molecule, this new drug, is the answer to affordability, which has been elusive for many, many years. And last but not least, I say that because that's the line I always hear from Third World Network, Chee, Yoke-Ling, for many, many years, and the predecessors, and they always give us the global context of affordability. The registration of ravidasvir in Malaysia, a middle-income country in the global south, is a stark reminder to all around the world that this is possible. Lower middle-income countries, you could do this. You could take the lead on drug development, as well as on the quality of pharmaceutical, the safety of it, and the efficacy of regulations. We are today maybe very challenged to meet the target of elimination of hepatitis C by 2030, but this is a new weapon. This is the gathering of all the superheroes. This is the Avengers to fight hepatitis C. And the first to be talking, of course, would be the Captain Marvel of the Super Avengers, which is Tan Sri, Dr. Noor Hisham. Thank you so much for making time. I know you're very busy in the current situation of the country, but over to you to please enlighten us on the struggle to get here and how wonderful this achievement is. Over to you, Tan Sri.
Thank you very much, Cam. Thank you for the very insightful introduction. Hepatitis C is a global public health concern, and the recent data from WHO shows that 59 million people around the world are infected, and about 290,000 died yearly. And more importantly, hepatitis C is known as the leading silent epidemic, as 3 out of 4 people do not even know their status, and because it is largely asymptomatic. Now, 70% of those infected will end up develop chronic hepatitis C. That will develop, probably leading to 15 to 30% of those chronic hepatitis will develop liver cirrhosis, liver failure, and liver cancer in the long term. Now, having said that, one unique thing is on hepatitis C, there is a cure. And it is most important that, for any disease, if we have a cure, the issue now is the access to the affordability to eliminate hepatitis C in 2030. Now, Malaysia has about 400,000 people with hepatitis C, and our issue is mainly affordability, access, and availability of the treatment. Now, our journey started way back in 2005, 6 years ago, when we have had multiple series of engagement with the respective companies and medicine patent pool for price negotiation, and to be included as one of the countries, low middle income countries, for voluntary license. But unfortunately, all attempts failed and we were denied. Now, Malaysia, we are caught in a middle income country trap. We are not entitled for the voluntary license given to a lower middle income country. Neither we could afford for the exorbitant cost of treatment. And we were pushed to the wall, and we did what we said to do. That is, we have to challenge the status quo. Now, we explore the TRIPS agreement in a Doha declaration, that is a trade-related aspect of the intellectual property rights. And we did exercise the compulsory license way back in 2003 in our management of HIV and AIDS. And we follow all requirements, and more importantly, and we have to declare in Malaysia that hepatitis C is a public health concern. And we did that in October 2016. And coming together, we have to convince our government that we have no other alternative, no other options unless we exercise the government right. So in August 2017, we managed to convince the government, and the government approved to exercise the government right, that is the compulsory license. And this was done in September. We got approval from the Ministry of Trade and Domestic Affairs. And eventually, this is how we started our journey. More importantly is that in October 2017, we were offered voluntary license after declaring that we will exercise the government right. So we welcome the voluntary license for the private sector, and with the compulsory license and voluntary license, certainly this is a competitive market pricing. So we make available the treatment to our patients using a combination of SOVO and DECLA. But in 2016, we also signed a MOU with the DNDi to explore new compound. That is what we are talking today, ravidasvir. And this has opened up a lot of opportunity in our country to conduct clinical trials, basically to a new combination therapy between SOVO as well as ravidasvir. So this is just the beginning. One opportunity leads to many other opportunities. So I'll leave to Dr. Radzi to talk about the details of the clinical trial. But having said that, once we have the clinical trial, and recently published in the Lancet as one of the best combination to treat hepatitis C at lower costs but high efficacy, then we also work with other agencies. So this is where we lead with partnership between companies, and we also open up many more opportunities working with other societies and people. Once we have the research done and available medicine, and the next is we have the means. But at that point of time, the treatment was more expensive than the diagnostic. So we have to work with other organizations like FIND, that is Foundation of Innovative New Diagnostic, to bring down the cost of the diagnosis. Basically, a fast point of care testing, and we came up with the rapid test kit. So to diagnose hepatitis C with diagnostic and therapeutic means, so we can actually scale up our treatment and management of hepatitis C. And we took decentralization of services from the hospital tertiary care to the primary care in the urban as well as the rural area. So now we have a diagnostic and therapeutic means. And the next is to scale up our detection of hepatitis C patient and eventually meet the goals of 2030, that is to eliminate hepatitis C in this country. So I think what we have shown is partnership is a very important for us, and especially whole government and whole society approach partnership locally and globally. And certainly this is a South cooperation, and this is the beginning of a new era, I would say, that in drug discovery and detection. So this is just an introduction of what we have done. But more importantly, the government is providing the framework, and we need the partnership to fill in the requirements in terms of how to build the journey to achieve the goal of elimination of hepatitis C in 2030. So I think this is a story that we can share, and this is a successful story. But certainly, if we were to look into this journey, it is fantastic milestone. It certainly is an understatement. More importantly, this is a phenomenal achievement of partnership and South-to-South cooperation. Thank you.
So enamored by what DG said at the end, still thinking as a journalist, because if it was me doing the headline for today, I would take that last two lines that DG said, because this is a phenomenal achievement out of the world. This is like the Avengers, Captain Marvel put together and saving the world, and we're going to save the sufferers of hepatitis C. And at the beginning, the Director General of Health of Malaysia, Tan Sri, Dr. Noor Hisham, mentioned about convincing the government, the political will to do this. Even though this was announced as a breaking news 10 days ago almost, you still can see rather a muted silence around the world on the commitments of others. So that speaks volume for what has been achieved in Malaysia through what DG has said. But the system in MOH and our public health system has got to be ready to do all this also. And because his boss has said it, I now have to give over the chance to Dato Dr. Muhammad Radzi, because DG said the clinical side, ask Dato Dr. Muhammad Radzi. But please, Dato Dr. Muhammad Radzi, if you can include the human sufferings and what was so frustrating before, because this is amplified across many other societies and countries around the world. And in the north where you are, you've been faced directly with the people who have suffered from this sickness, from this virus, and then maybe you can tell how the breakthrough, participating in the clinical trials, and then moving on to what we have now. Over to you, Doctor.
Well, thank you very much, Karam. Well, you have made my job a bit more easier now, I think, because you have mentioned most of it what I'm going to say. But anyhow, what I'll do is that I'm going to go very briefly on a bit on the hepatitis C, and then outlined what we have done so far as a clinician. Hepatitis C is a viral disease which primarily affects your liver via a process known as inflammation. So in the long run, if you don't stop this process of inflammation caused by the virus, it will end up as a liver damage and ultimately cause liver dysfunction. So this is very important because this is the hallmark in understanding about the disease. If left untreated, the liver function will slowly deteriorate, leading to liver failure, and significant proportions of them will actually develop liver cancer. So the process, of course, is very slow. In fact, at the early stage of the disease, as we mentioned by Tan Sri DG as well, that they are all asymptomatic until they reach at the later stage, then they will start to manifest their symptoms. So hence, that is the reasons why hepatitis C is also known as the silent killer. Liver failure is a very serious complication, as most of the patients will succumb to the illness. I can take one analogy, for example, like in the case of the kidney failure, we still have the machine, we still have an option to replace the functions of the kidney. However, in the case of hepatitis, if you in the case of the liver failure, well, basically you have no options. There was no replacement therapy, no machine to repair, neither anything that we can do to replace the functions of the liver. So hence, I think this is very, very important that all of us need to diagnose hepatitis C and treat, especially at the early stage, and stop the progressions of the liver inflammation, which could lead to the liver failure or liver cancer. Most of our patients are not aware if they have acquired the infections, as it is asymptomatic, as been said previously. So it's important, especially if you have the risk factor, you need to test your status. You need to know, because we have the treatment, we have the test for all. It's a very simple test, as mentioned by Transfer DG as well. Now we have just by a finger prick and a drop of blood, then you will know your status of hepatitis C. This is what we call the rapid diagnostic test. We have been using this now, I think, because this is a fantastic innovation of how to diagnose easily hepatitis C in our populations. So now we are very much indeed blessed with the DAA, which is known as a direct antiviral agent, and we all know that ravidasvir is one of them. So we managed to bring this medicine, the DAA, sometime in the mid-2018. So I would like to take this opportunity again to thank Transfer DG, who led the missions of, I would always say that these missions are impossible, to bring the generic DAA to the Malaysian shore. So this is a tremendous achievement to our patient with hepatitis C in Malaysia. I have been, I would say, a clinician or as a doctor for the past 30 years. So I have seen the journey of hepatitis C. Back then, about 20 or 30 years ago, hepatitis C is simply like a death sentence, because there's no treatment specifically for hepatitis C, and you're just watching the patient to die in front of your eyes because there was no treatment, basically. Not until about late 80s or 90s, then we have what we call this the interferon therapy. Well, unfortunately, that was not a very good drug either because of the quite toxic side effect. And we have seen, for those of you who have been treated patients with hepatitis C with interferon, the suffer that they have to endure with all the side effects, and furthermore that the percentage of the cure from this treatment is still not up to the point. Only about half of them will manage to clear the virus. So it's not a pleasant experience. So thank God when the DAA came through, sometimes in 2018 to Malaysian shore, but the DAA is actually already available, I think sometime in 2015 or 2013, but only came to Malaysia by the effort done by the government of Malaysia and Transfer DG leadership, that we managed to get the DAA sometimes in 2018. It was a major breakthrough in medicine, in fact. It's a huge milestone in science, because for the first time, we have a medicine which is actually cure for the chronic illnesses, for chronic viral illnesses. I'm sure you all know HIV, who has been the treatment has been on for a while already. But however, HIV is not curative. I mean, you just only suppress the viral infections. Whereas in the case of the DAA, it is actually clear the virus, and literally patients is cured from the disease. And by that virtue, we are preventing those patients from getting the liver disease, from the liver complications, from the liver failure. So this is really, really phenomenal achievement in science. And the other good things about the DAA is that majority of those patients who've been treated, they all will get cured. The literature has shown that more than 95%, and in the case of ravidasvir, it has been shown about 97%, close to 100% of all those patients that have been treated get cured. So this is also another phenomenal achievement that we have got so far. So having said that, now we have the effective treatment. we have all the infrastructure. So the next question is, how are we going to roll out this treatment so that it will be accessible, reachable to our community in our patients? So this is what our next task is, that I think we have to figure out the best way on how to roll out our treatment DAA. So this is where we have tried to gather all the different stakeholders. Tasri mentioned just now the partnership that we have done, the clinical trial with DNDi, and also with the FIND project, and also with the other involvement. This is for the first time. I mean, I'm being the clinician, so it's all this while at the hospital. This is the opportunity for me to learn on how the best to tackle these public health problems, i.e. by getting involvement of the different group in the Ministry of Health itself, and also by getting a partnership with the external agency. So we have done it. We have done our DNDi trial, which is STORM, and also we have done the FIND project, which is mainly how to decentralize our treatment and testing to the community. And it's proven to be a very effective way of rolling out our treatment and testing to the community. As a testimony to that, I mean, last year itself, despite of the COVID-19, the pandemic that we have, we managed to treat 4,000 patients last year. This is incredible. With all the odds that we have, I think we managed to treat that number of patients. It used to be before the DAA, hardly a year, about 200 patients being treated. But now we managed to clear, the virus for about 4,000 patients. Up to now, we have treated more than 10,000 patients. So whatever that we have done, whatever the clinical trial that we have tried, so far so good. I mean, the outcome has been very good, and then there are a lot more patients to be treated. Yeah. So I may conclude now by saying that, or by urging everyone that this is the golden opportunity. We have to take whatever it takes in order to treat, to test people with hepatitis C, because we have a curative treatment right now, and the drug is highly tolerable. It's nothing compared to the previous treatment that we have. It's just like taking the pill for a short period, and the other things is very simple. Within 3 months, you can clear the virus. So I think with that, I stop here first, and then maybe I think we can have a clear more discussions later on during the question and answer. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Muhammad Radzi. And because of you, I have to move from the Avengers to maybe Batman and DC Universe, because you might be Robin to DG, who is Batman, because unless you have put and convinced him wholeheartedly, I'm sure, because Tasri DG needs to look at a lot of things that dictates his attention for the public health of our country. So maybe we can ask you that in the Q&A. But like I said, all this is not possible, and DG have made that point towards the end of his discussion just now, that the new model, the partnership is crucial, the South-South cooperation is essential, and who better to have as a friend for a fight like this, for the marginalized, for the less looked at communities of the world, than Dr. Sherine Helmy, the CEO or Chief Executive Officer of Pharco Corporation, because while we have 400,000, but Egypt has been grappling with hepatitis C for the longest time, and that put the consciousness in their mind that they must do this for the benefit of the people, not for money. Easier said than done when you are in company. But over to you, Dr. Sherine Helmy, still early in morning there. I can spy with my little eye and see Dr. Yasir also, who heads the hepatitis C program for Pharco. Never mind. Assalamualaikum, and over to you.
Alaikum salam. I will start my saying with Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. For years, the innovations came from north to south, but medium and low income countries stayed in the dark. So to have the light coming from south to south, so instead of the sun coming from the west to the east for the first time, we will make it go right and the light of the sun will come from the east of Malaysia to the west of the world and to the rest of the world. In 2017, when I attended the United Nations Secretary General High-Level Panel for Access to Medicine in South Africa, I was the speaker number 99 out of 100 speakers. So I started with to pee or not to pee, that's the question. To patent or not to patent, that's the question. The patient or the profit, that's the question. And the conclusion was we have to make South-South cooperation. We have to start with governments. We have to obey the law of patents. But at the same time, we have to do our homework. We have to put some budgets. We have to put some political will. We have to start cooperating like we did with DNDi, Drugs for Neglected Diseases Initiative, with the government of Malaysia. And I have to thank the Director General, Sir Noor Hisham, for his dedication, Dr. Radzi, Dr. Jean-Michel, all the team, Dr. Sharifah, all Pharmaniaga, all the team. We work together as one team to make light come on its right path. I started my problem with hepatitis C when my father-in-law passed away after being infected after blood transfusion, and I saw the trauma in the family. And by that time, the medicine costed $100,000, and it was said that Egypt is the highest prevalent country in the world with 10 million patients. So this is $1 trillion cost for the government. So in 2015, the president of Egypt, President Sisi, said we have to cure this disease from Egypt and we have a dream. And he asked the pharmaceutical industry, are you ready to go for this? And we said, hi, sir, we are ready. So we started not with the 4 Ds, which is drugs, diagnostics, dorms, and doctors. We had direction and political will. We had discoveries. We had documentation. We had accreditation. We got 4 WHO pre-qualifications. We had demand fulfillment. And we succeeded to treat 4.1 million patients of hepatitis C in Egypt. And this is a Guinness World Record because the rest of the world cured less than that in the past few years. Not only this, after curing all the waiting list, we bought 8 mobile clinics from Germany and we bought 4 million kits of the rapid test. By that time, it was new to hear about the rapid test, and we succeeded in having some diplomats like Leo Messi and other singers in Egypt, where 10,000 young people make the analysis and go to the concert for free. So also we got the donors, we got the data system, we made detailing and advertisement. So we made all the ecosystem that could be given to other areas in the world who has the political will. If there is a will, there is a way. Because Egypt was transferred from the highest prevalent to treat all diagnosed patients. And we made tests for 60 million Egyptians age 6 years and up. And now we are working also together with different entities to make for children the drug available also. So I think this collaboration is just a start. And during DNDi's 15th birthday, I said that there is a present at the age of 18, and I think we are closer now. So I think other areas of disease could be tackled from south to south and from east to west. So I thank you very much, and we hope that we can make this as a gift to the whole world with a cost of $300 plus a little bit, or if Pharco is handling the job from A to Z, we can stick to the $300, and we hope we got it down from 11,000 to 300, which is 2.7% from the budget and less than 3 per thousand from the price worldwide. Thank you very much, and Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
Alhamdulillah. I was just saying, Alhamdulillah indeed, because the CEO of a pharmaceutical company talking about people, not about money, and talking about the global cooperation, especially South-South. Thank you so much, Dr. Sherine, on behalf of all Malaysians looking forward to this affordable new treatment. But Dr. Sherine, in our country, Malaysia, we say if we clap with one hand, it doesn't work. So there's a pharmaceutical company called Pharco. There's a pharmaceutical company called Pharmaniaga. You know, the one who have to do, you know, some people don't like this tedious documentation, verification, ensuring that the registration gets through. And I don't know about pharmacokinetics, toxicology, but everything that needed by our very strict regulators before they give the approval for this registration. All those journey, all those processes, over to you, Saudari Sharifah, because you are from Pharmaniaga and you will enlighten us on how tough it was to get everything in order and to break the world record of having the first registration of the affordable treatment for hepatitis C by South-South Cooperation. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yes, Pharmaniaga's role in this tripartite collaboration is in the registering of the product. All pharmaceutical products must be registered before they can be imported or before they can be manufactured. You know, this is clearly stated under Section 7(1)(a) of the Control of Drugs and Cosmetics Regulation 1984. So the regulating body here is NPRA, the National Pharmaceutical Regulatory Agency under Ministry of Health. Now, the responsibility of the registration holder, in this case Pharmaniaga, is to submit to NPRA what we call as the registration dossier. Now, a registration dossier is a complex package of documents consisting, among others, scientific data, chemistry data, laboratory data, clinical data, non-clinical data, detailed manufacturing process, not just of the finished product, but also of the active ingredient, in this case of ravidasvir itself. Of course, the list of requirements is much longer than that, but just to give you a flavor of what is inside the package of a registration dossier. And all of these are systematically compiled in a package. And they're all very technical, and they are very essential because they prove the safety of the product, the efficacy of the product, as well as the intended quality. Okay. So in terms of regulatory strategy, we took a stand to engage NPRA very early on in the program, even before this registration dossier is ready. And this may be a new practice in Malaysia because it's not really a standard practice, especially when we're talking about generic pharmaceutical registration. We do not do this activity, but engaging regulators early on in the process is a standard practice for developed countries whenever they file in a new investigational product. So it's a standard practice. So that was a stand that we took to engage NPRA very early on in the process. And what we did was, it was March of 2018, together with the partners, we made the first presentation to NPRA. We introduced ravidasvir as a new compound to NPRA. We shared data on the safety profile that was obtained through a set of non-clinical studies. We shared some preliminary clinical trial data. Okay, and from that point on, for the next several months, there were a few other engagements that we made with NPRA to keep them abreast on the latest development of the project. Okay, and all this while the registration dossier is still being developed. Now, on the other aspect of regulatory strategy, I would say that there was a couple of very significant policy changes from the leadership of NPRA itself, which the project immediately took advantage of. Now, one of it was the establishment of what we call as the pre-submission meeting, or the PSM. PSM is a platform where NPRA provides a service, advisory service, I would say. PSM is an advisory service where NPRA provide regulatory advice during the development stage of the product. So the outcome of the PSM discussion will then be incorporated into the registration dossier. Right, so I would just like to take a moment and share with you that the date 16 January 2020 was a historical moment, not just for this partnership, but I believe it's also a historical moment for NPRA when the very first PSM was conducted, 16th of January 2020. Okay, so basically the project benefited, one, from the early engagement with NPRA, and two, NPRA's support and outstanding leadership in terms of some of the policy changes, but maintaining the stringent regulatory requirements and making no compromises with regards to quality, safety, and efficacy. So as a result, Malaysia is the first country in the world to register Ravida with ravidasvir as an NCE. And honestly, this is a very proud moment for the country, and it is also an important step in the country's progress towards regulatory maturity. And on behalf of the tripartite collaboration, I'm very proud to say that we have played a role in that particular journey. So that is the story of the regulatory journey.
Thank you so much, Saudari Sharifah. My university had pharmacy as a course. I regretted not taking it, but I think I get what you're saying. That means there was no leeway or whatever or shortcuts given. Everything was to the spick and span of the laws and regulation we already have. So nobody should be worried about safety or about efficacy anymore. Everything has been documented and proven. However, we have to go back to the global partners. In Malaysia, Dr. Sherine and John, we have this saying, you can pukul kompang sendiri, you beat your own drums of what you're doing. So I need the validation from the drug for neglected diseases, because you've been looking at this years ago for many other diseases, not just for Hep C, but you found that Hep C have a chance to be the pioneering breakthrough, especially through South and South, and somehow you think that Malaysia has a key role to play, and now it has succeeded. All this and more, over to you, Jean-Michel Piedagnel, the Director for Southeast Asia or East Asia for DNDi. Your turn.
Thank you, Cam. Thank you. I think to answer to your comment, your question, it's important to remember what is the main model for delivering new treatment. And the main model is it's big pharma, and the names we all have in mind at the moment is Pfizer, AstraZeneca, so those are international pharmaceutical companies usually based in high-income countries, and they deliver new treatment. DNDi is an international non-for-profit research and development organization. So we develop drugs for diseases where the traditional players, the traditional market that I've just mentioned, are not providing drugs, usually because there is no profit to be made. They are profit-driven organization, and that's okay. And so they cannot engage in this market. So we step in, and we step in usually in what we call neglected tropical diseases, with a model which is collaborative, partnership, non-for-profit, and we focus on patient and affordability. Because I think a lot of us in DNDi believe, what's the point of innovation, in medical innovation, if it doesn't translate into access for patients? So we are addressing this question with our model, and that's why in the last 16 years, we have developed 8 treatments, and this is the 9th one. And it's a lot in the medical world to put 9 treatments in 16 years on the market, and especially this one is what we call a new chemical entity. And that's the kind of the holy grail in medical research. You know, the new chemical entity is an entirely new medicine. So that's what it is, and that's what the ravidasvir is. And it's a very good drug, as we have heard before. It's a very effective one. So why did we engage in HCV? Because although the core of our activities is neglected tropical diseases, you cannot say that HCV was neglected. But what we felt is the innovation in R&D for HCV, again, did not translate into access for patients. So we felt that that was mostly because there was a lack of competition. And so we decided to use our model, our collaborative non-for-profit model, and to invest in R&D for HCV so that we could bring more competition. And we decided, you know, to work with a middle-income country to try to develop an effective treatment. It is true that, you know, with the price tag that you have mentioned, there was a need, you know, for this alternative approach to try to innovate and to bring treatments. We felt we were ready to do that, especially with the partners such as Thailand, Malaysia, but also the industrial partners. And then we met Pharco, who had this ravidasvir molecule, and we decided to develop it together. It's also interesting, you know, to think that there is also innovation here, because usually when we think about advocating for access, we think about militant groups, patient groups. This is what happened, for example, with HIV. You know, militant groups stepped up and requested that the price of drugs was made affordable. Here we engage the HCV conversation on access through research and development. And that's also unique. You know, we started a clinical trial in Thailand and Malaysia saying we are also going to be able to put on the market an affordable treatment. And here I'd like to, you know, thank all the doctors, the nurses, the pharmacists from Malaysia and Thailand that did a wonderful job in implementing the clinical trial. And of course, especially Professor Satawat, who was the national investigator in Thailand, and Dr. Tan, who is the national investigator in Malaysia. I think they all did a fantastic job in providing a quality clinical trial, which is an important cornerstone in the access strategy that we have developed. Indeed, I think, you know, partnership in making this treatment available came through when we discussed with Malaysia and Thailand in terms of organizing this clinical trial, which Malaysia and Thailand put money in, so they sponsored also this clinical trial. It was also funded by a non-for-profit organization, Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières, MSF. So again, you know, something different that an international medical organization would invest into R&D in collaboration with Thailand, with Malaysia, and with us. And I think from that point, especially in Malaysia, what was very interesting is although it started, and this is where the magic happened, it started with a clinical trial, and the MOH in Malaysia then took the lead and developed all the aspects of what is essentially an access strategy. We started talking about local production with Pharmaniaga and Pharco. We started talking about decentralization, simplification of treatment. FINE came in, another international non-for-profit organization, to look into diagnostic. And then we collaborate all across the board with the MOH, ICR, CRM, IMR, and, you know, two pharmaceutical companies, FINE, MSF, the NPRA. You know, this is incredible what we have put together here in Malaysia to move away from a clinical trial to a full-blown access strategy. This is incredible. I would have never expected when we started this journey that our model of, you know, our collaborative model will deliver something so impressive. And this is why we are here today, because the registration of the Ravida in Malaysia is a stepping stone. There is still a lot of work to do. Malaysia has totally changed its policy and strategy in terms of treatment and access. You are even designing specific program to access at-risk group, considering treatment in prisons. You know, it's really a full-blown access strategy, which started with a clinical trial. And now we can say that the MOH has today all the tools that it needs to bring free treatment to Malaysians. And even though we might have a catalyst role at the beginning, I think this was only achievable through a real collaboration across the board. So I was there from the beginning, you know, and my background is with Doctors Without Borders, MSF, and I have seen many patients that did not have access to treatment. This is why MSF got involved in creating the DNDi. And for me, it's real pleasure to see what we have been able to achieve in Malaysia, in translating innovation into access for patients in Malaysia. And now we need to go beyond Malaysia together with Egypt and try to make sure that this treatment is available to as many people as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jean-Michel, on that. And I could hear the passion for patients in that, but that's the line from Pharmaniaga that I borrowed but put into effect. However, this is a press conference. It is about narrative. And even though my new great friend, Dr. Sherine, said that we must correct the way the sun moves, that the sun for drugs and treatment should not come from the west, but it should be like the sun coming from the east. However, my next panelist would have to help me on, you know, also touching on the narrative. But that is not the case in terms of narrative, discourse, and information. Imagine if this press conference is done right there in Davos right now, we would have like global media doing live and everything else. So, Chee Yoke-Ling, my friend, longtime friend, the director of Third World Network, will have to address that and more, because DG started with public health, policy, political will, governance, administration, and then we go to the clinical side, and then we hear from the pharmacy and new drug development side, and then we hear from Jean-Michel of the new model and everything else. But the world we live in are not exactly conducive to that. The ecosystem globally that we have, we still talk about colonialism, inequality, unequal access. There are countries who can hog vaccine 5 to 10 times more than their population need, when everyone else is trying hard to get it. So over to you, Yoke-Ling. Please clear this ecosystem and context for us.
Thank you, Cam. As always, you set very high tasks for all your panelists. Thank you so much for being able to share not my personal perspective, there'll be a little bit of that, but also the work that Dr. Radzi said is all society, and Tan Sri also emphasized this, because none of this can happen in our country, or to have that global shift, that access of equity and need becomes the organizing principle for R&D and for manufacture. So as a civil society organization person who have been working on access, you know, since the year 2000, when we first had to realize the impact of the WTO, the World Trade Organization's agreement on intellectual property, this thing called the TRIPS agreement really changed the world, because it made it compulsory for all countries who are members of the WTO to give patents on pharmaceutical products. And all products and inventions and processes a minimum of 20 years. We talk about milestones and journeys today. That was a milestone that actually was a big setback for having a vibrant manufacturing sector in the pharmaceutical area, and also really created a lot of the barriers to access to medicines. So when we see the explosion in 2000, 2001 globally, that was triggered by the unaffordable prices of HIV, the first drug, that led to a huge debate globally, and that's why the WTO passed this Doha Declaration in 2001 that said that, yes, there is this agreement, but this agreement is not airtight. There are lots of flexibilities, lots of rights, lots of exemptions, but we have to use that in our national law. So the journey for myself and Third World Network and many of our organizations in Malaysia and globally since 2001 is to make sure our national intellectual property laws serves public health, serves independent development of our local industry, so that we do not have to depend on on imports from the West, where we can have the kind of cooperation that we are celebrating today. For me personally, when I heard story after story in the last few years of people who had to be treated with the interferon injection that Dr. Radzi mentioned, it didn't work. The effective rate was less than, maybe around 50% if you're lucky. And you have this injection. I mean, having a needle poked into you regularly as opposed to taking a pill is a big difference for treatment. And it was so bad in terms of the side effects. People were having hallucinations. They were so sick. And many people actually had suicidal tendencies. So when you hear that and you realize in 2015 that you had these tablets that could actually, if you catch it early, within 12 weeks, as we have heard, cure a person. If your liver has gone worse, then you need maybe another 24 weeks or you need 36 weeks. But those combinations of these direct-acting antiviral drugs, they are a miracle, as we have said. In our lifetime, it is not really that common to say we found a drug, a medicine that actually cures. So it is really the right of the world to have that access. So for us in this work, I mean, there are two areas. One is how do you ensure access, right? Now, access has to be really in the work that we've been doing with our civil society colleagues. We worked with the Ministry of Health because we had to actually take away the fear that intellectual property is untouchable, that a patent is some absolute monopoly that nobody can touch. No, because international law is very clear, and we have implemented most of our rights into our national law. So working since 2001 with the Ministry of Health, first for our government use compulsory license for HIV, and then it took us another more than 10 years before we used it again. There are so many drugs like cancer and many other things, which are so expensive, and we should be using compulsory licenses very easily because it's our right, or tighten our patent rules so that we don't give patents easily. Why is it that Egypt is able to be free of the patent barrier? Not because they chose not to give a patent because of just no reason. They have patent rules. They have a patent office, examined the application for sofosbuvir, which is the primary drug, and found that it did not meet the test of being new and inventive. So it is applying a public health-oriented intellectual property system and law. And so Egypt said, this patent does not deserve to have this drug does not deserve to have a patent. And that opened up the possibility for countries like Malaysia to be able to have a source of supply that is free of monopoly and high pricing. So ravidasvir is so important because every time we add a drug to the pool of what is available, we create competition, we drive prices down, we create more local industries in all our different countries, and we are able to reach the 2030 target. So, and I would say that all the partners we've heard today have been very important, but the patients, the people who have this disease, not even knowing. I have a member of my family who I did not know until I was doing this work, had actually interferon treatment. She went through so much psychological problems over 20 years. And only when we were talking about sofosbuvir and ravidasvir, coming on to help us, then we realized, looking back, that she actually had hepatitis C, which was not diagnosed because it is a silent killer. So for us in the civil society community, it is when Malaysia first issued that compulsory license, it inspired so many health officials and civil society activists around the world. I remember people like Dr. Salma, who has retired from the Ministry of Health, our head of pharmacy services. She was invited to fly to Colombia to talk to South American health ministries about Malaysia's experience and journey. Health ministry officials from pharmacy division were invited to a big conference, of hepatitis C, a global one. So our voice has not been unheard. The voices of civil society in this country, of patients, of patient advocacy groups, and many community groups, because we cannot reach out to find all those missing millions of people around the world if we don't engage people who are working with the high-risk groups. And in this country, I'm proud to say our roll-up program is very integrated to the outreach to all the people who need to be tested and treated, working together with civil society groups, patient groups, and also the community groups. And of course, the health personnel. We are very proud. We are one of the few countries, we don't realize, that by decentralizing so systematically the rollout of our free treatment program, we actually are one of the leaders of the world for that. I remember listening to a conference in the WHO where the lady from the New Zealand government said it took them 2 years to get the decentralizing done. They hadn't realized when they got the access for negotiated medicines price that the actual rollout would be so challenging. We have done it, and that is something very important. And I think I also want to say that the next steps, what are the next steps? One, our Patents Act is undergoing revision at the moment, some changes. Let's update it. Let's bring it to the 21st century. Let's make it work for public health. Let's make it work for encouraging our domestic industry. While we respect intellectual property, we have to make sure intellectual property is balanced. And that is something we have to do. NPRA, there's been a lot of discussion because the Malaysian society, well, most of people around the world, not just Malaysia, we don't understand drug registration. So thank you very much to Sharifah for explaining, because do I or you want to take any medicine or any vaccine that is not safe, not of quality, and does not work? Now, there's no guarantee. That's why there is a risk benefit. And those are decisions which are very hard to make by the Ministry of Health people. We should actually honor that difficult responsibility. So for NPRA, ravidasvir is so significant. It's the first time, as others have said, that Malaysia has actually registered a new chemical entity, a first time ever, which means we have now enhanced our capacity. And that partnership of production is so important, because if we don't do it ourselves, we cannot rely on others out of goodwill, charity, or just no possibility. So very few companies in the North, in the West, will do the kind of partnership we're talking today, sharing technology, working together. So I want just to end back by referring to what Dr. Radzi said just now. We went from the mission impossible to a magical journey. It was very hard. Every time we did something, we had a lot of pressure from the big pharmaceutical industry when Malaysia issued a compulsory license. We even had, officials from the Trump administration coming in, the ambassadors and the US trade representative, the Ministry of International Trade. They were putting pressure. Why? We were doing exactly what was our right as Malaysians, as developing countries, our rights under international law to do the best for our countries. So this model of development challenges that monopoly model. We have shown it works, and we can do it again and again and again. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Yoke-Ling. Thank you so much for that, painting the whole global picture, not just about public health, but other things that need to work in concert, like IP, global trade and patent and all that. So now it's the Q&A. There's tons of questions coming through the pipeline on this, but because I have to do this, then I want to invoke, just like compulsory license, my right to ask the first question. So to Tan Sri DG and the panelists, my question is to start and kick off this Q&A. So now that we have the equivalent of the Avengers, the superheroes to fight hepatitis C, what is ideally the rollout and the picture that we can give the people the hope of them being cured and treated for hepatitis C? Like, for example, is the target of 2030 eradicating hepatitis C once and for all from our society? How is that now? Is that more doable now? What do we need to do? Tan Sri, if you can start first, thank you. Tan Sri?
All right, thank you very much, Cam. I think at the moment, we have diagnostic and therapeutic means, but that's not over yet, because that's just the beginning. How can we scale up the treatment in terms of, looking into our clinical trials, following our clinical trials, have an integrated access strategy. And this is where we try to build the ecosystem. From the administrative point of view, we are looking this as a public health measure. This is a massive public health measures. Number one, to treat the patients with hepatitis C. Number two, in the long run, to prevent liver cirrhosis, liver cancers, liver failures, and the enormous cost in the long run. So this is an investment for prevention. So public health basically is prevention. So we are looking in the next 10 years, maybe if we can eliminate hepatitis C, then we indirectly will eliminate liver failures, liver cirrhosis, liver cancers. And hopefully with this combination treatment therapy, and we can certainly end the liver cancers, for example, in this country. So I think when you look into the perspective of liver cancers, liver failures, and liver cirrhosis, that is, we are doing the preventive measures now. And we will see the long-term outcome of the cost effectiveness of the treatment. It's also indirectly a cost saving. Being a clinician and also being a surgeon, we can treat one patient at a time. But public health is looking into massive preventions, massive measures to prevent, even to eradicate diseases like cancers. So I think this is something that we are looking seriously, but it cannot be from the perspective of administration, but it is an integrated access strategy. And everyone must come on board for us to address this issue. We all have a common goal, that is to end, to eliminate hepatitis C and to prevent the consequences.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Tan Sri. Dr. Sherine, what is Pharco's commitment to, accept and work together with what Tan Sri has said?
Our dream has been fulfilled, and for us in Egypt to make a drug master file and to build an API company and to start from A to Z making this medicine made it in our hands to take the lead. And as you know, the economies of scale will help us get this medicine in a very affordable price. So we are committing to what we said, and we are working together with all the team, Pharmaniaga, DNDi, Ministry of Health in Malaysia, and all the team to make it happen. So we are committed, and we will do our best to even make it at lower cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sherine. Saudari Sharifah, the supply has indicated they have no issues. Tan Sri DG has said this is all of government, all of society, and is end to end. Are we having the capacity in the near to medium term to do this, to supply ravidasvir to everyone who needs it in our country and beyond?
Thank you, Ken. Yes, that is going to be the exact plan. Pharmaniaga's team is very much aligned with the aspiration of the country, which is to eliminate hepatitis C by 2030. So now that the product is already registered, and as we speak, it's in the final stages of the manufacturing and process validation, all the regulatory needs, it will be in our shores in this next in the next half of the year, inshallah. And we will definitely be working very closely with stakeholders, key stakeholders like Dato Dr. Radzi himself, to focus on where we can place the treatment in key hospitals. But at the same time, our team in Pharmaniaga is also all gearing up to be able to engage with gastroenterologists, hepatologists from the private sector, both hospitals as well as some selected GPs, because we also want to live the aspiration of being able to help decentralize the treatment. So that is the commitment from Pharmaniaga.
Thank you, Sharifah. Dato, Dr. Radzi, hepatology, gastroenterology is your division and your area of looking. You mentioned the figure 4,000, 10,000. What hope is that at the grassroots level to the patients already queuing up, to those who have been screened and just waiting to be cured? Can you give us an indication of how it is changing their life right now?
Well, as we mentioned repeatedly by all the panelists, I mean, this DAA, the one that we have right now, is curative. I mean, certainly with the DAA, it has changed the landscape of this hepatitis C, and particularly to the patients who suffer from hepatitis C, is going to be a big difference. I've seen so many patients already. I mean, many of them who suffer from the hepatitis C, and when they get treated, they are almost back to their own daily normal activities again. They are back to their jobs, they're back to their family, and they're back to what. So this is a big promise, it's a big hope for all the patients who are out there with hepatitis C. The drugs that we have right now is available, and ravidasvir, as what for the today's sessions, the press conference, is one of the DAA. So in general, we were talking about for the treatment of hepatitis C, we have the backbone of the medicine, which is sulfasvir, and the other ones, it could be ravidasvir, it could be daclatasvir, it could be other DAAs. So we need to have to do this medication. Okay. Currently, under the Ministry of Health, we have this drug available, and they are ready. We are already geared up. Maybe I should explain a bit. I think the terminology that's been mentioned quite repeatedly, i.e. the decentralization. This is the key strategy in terms of rolling out the testing and the treatment of the patient to the community. What does it mean? Basically, it's a patient-centric approach. Traditionally, we were talking about any kind of treatment specifically. So the patients come to the hospital. There's a few visits until they get treated, so on and so forth. They can follow up and they need to be monitored. But in the case of hepatitis C, you can actually bring the treatment to the community. So this is the whole concept of public health approach, bringing the treatment to the patients, to the community. So there should not be any reasons for them to get access to these facilities. So this is the main strategy that we are trying to do right now, because we have the drugs, we have a very conducive ecosystem. In terms of the infrastructure, we are one of the best in terms of the healthcare delivery. So I think we just have to piggy right on this, what we call this, the system that we have already. So we just have to roll out, get it done out there to all the patients, test, treat everyone out there. We use all other means as well, the collaborations, the partnership, working together with the others, getting everyone. We extend even our treatment now to the prison, to the rehabilitation center, and we are engaging the GPs and also the private sector as well.
Okay. Dato, Dr. Radzi, can you stay on the mic? Because I have two questions here from Saraswati Devi from MIMS Medica. But I'm going to take her second question first, so that because you're on that track already. Is ravidasvir available to patients in Malaysia, and in which hospitals?
Okay, the ravidasvir just been registered, so it can be made available. It's just that in the Ministry of Health, there are some process whereby once registered, you have to get a few other documents. You have to be also some of the steps in order to make it readily available at hospital. But at the moment, I mean, once it's registered, we can actually prescribe by using a special clause of provision. So it can be made available from now onward. Okay. At the Ministry of Health Hospital.
While you are on the roll, can you take the first question from Saraswati Devi also? What's the indication for ravidasvir? It's given in combination with sofosbuvir, right?
Yeah, that's right. As I mentioned just now, they have to be combined with the backbone of the DAA, which is a sofosbuvir. The indications for ravidasvir is just like any other DAA. From our study, we have shown that it probably even better in a certain aspect, in the sense that apart from treating hepatitis C for this, those who, even to the point that those who have early cirrhosis, is highly effective. It's close to 100% cure rate, highly tolerable. And also the other advantage of this ravidasvir is that you don't need any other medication, because in certain conditions of hepatitis C, you need additional drug. But for ravidasvir, it's enough by itself. And also in terms of drug interactions, is also its advantage, particularly because some drug of the DAA, they can communicate. So you need to adjust the dose.
Okay.
But in the case of ravidasvir, you don't have to.
Okay. Dr. Radzi, as long as you're on that point, correct me if I'm wrong, but the genotype 3 is said to be the most vicious of this virus. Does ravidasvir cover all this? And at the same time, people who are taking medication for HIV or any other sickness that they are having, is there compatibility?
Oh yeah, precisely. I mean, this is a very, very good question. The other advantage is that if you use the ravidasvir for this combination, it's a perfect, because we did a study particularly also looking at the HIV co-infections with hepatitis C, and we have shown that this drug works wonder. I mean, it's almost 100% of them are all cured. So it works well with the HIV, and then there's not much of in terms of the drug interaction. It's sort of like an extra advantage on top of the existing. It works for all the genotype.
Yes. So no issue, right?
Yeah, it's no issue for genotype 3. Okay. Including the cirrhosis. Yeah.
All right. So I think I'm going to direct this to Tan Sri DG. This is from Saraswati also. What's the treatment cost for hepatitis C with the availability of ravidasvir? Maybe you can give the whole of government, whole of society, public health approach on this, Tan Sri?
Yeah, thank you very much. So we are looking at the cost as what Dr. Sherine mentioned, about $300 US. So with the competitive market pricing, we expect to bring it down to $100 US. That is our target. So I think it is, achievable, and that's our. Hopefully, in years to come, it will be much cheaper. So I think we have perhaps 10 years to go to roll out this treatment, and we anticipate that it will be less than $100 US.
The fourth question also from Saraswati Devi: can patients who have been on other treatment for hepatitis C be shifted to receive ravidasvir combination? So maybe Dato, Dr. Radzi?
Okay. Well, we actually shift the medications to the next the next group or the next choice when there is a case, for example, like there is a failure of treatment. You treat a group of patients with hepatitis C and then they fail to clear the virus. So we may want to consider using ravidasvir. But I have to be very cautious here because we don't have the figure yet. We don't have the clinical data on this thing. We don't have much idea, but I reckon that there shouldn't be any problem. I mean, to shift into the soft and ravidasvir as the second line after getting the first line of treatment.
Thank you, Dr. Tan Sri DG. I'm going to rephrase this question for you from Ahmad Mustaqim Zulkifli from Malaysia Now. I know you have given the overview. Maybe a bit more detail of specificity, if you may. What is the government's plan for ravidasvir rollout in Malaysia to Hep C patients? Tan Sri, maybe you can check your mute button.
All right, thank you very much for the questions. So when we did the study, it was a 12-week study. So I think one study leads to another. So we are also exploring, is it possible for us to treat a patient 8 weeks? So which means we can cut costs down to 1/3. And that's important for us to move forward. But our intention now is to roll out not only decentralization from the tertiary care to the primary care, but also to make it available in clinics and in the urban and as well as the rural areas. So the family medicine physician can actually prescribe and continue to diagnose as well as to treat. So you make it available in all our clinics. We have more than 3,000 clinics in whole Malaysia, from Perlis until Tawau. So basically, this is an important integrated strategy, make available the treatment and diagnostics and treatment in the community. So this is how we approach using public health measures. I think, and it's also long term, it will be a cost saving for us to prevent treat cancers, liver cancers, cirrhosis, and liver failure. And that's treatment for this disease. I mean, and sequelae of the hepatitis C is actually more expensive. So I think this is very important for us to invest in public health, and this is where prevention comes in, and it will be a cost saving for the country in the next 10 years.
Thank you very much, Tan Sri. Thank you for mentioning the smaller state also, Perlis. Nobody is left behind in this, right up until Tawau and Sabah and Sarawak. The next question, I apologize if I don't pronounce your name right. Deshigan Balakrishnan from NST. Can Ms. Sharifah explain more about the compulsory license issued by the government? So Ms. Sharifah, a bit of a backgrounder and then linking it to now that ravidasvir has been announced. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. The compulsory license was issued by the KPDN HEP, and it allowed Pharmaniaga to import generic sofosbuvir from Egypt, and the license was given to us for a period of 3 years. Effective date was 15 of October 2017 and up to 15 of October 2020. So it has right now expired. But in order for us to be able to proceed with the hepatitis C treatment with ravidasvir, we have also other plans in order to use probably the voluntary license that has already been registered in Malaysia.
Thank you so much, Sharifah. From Aina Aiman FMT, Free Malaysia Today. When is the earliest we can expect to start seeing this decentralization of treatment using the new combo therapy with ravidasvir? Will it be free to patient, or if not, how much would it cost? Tan Sri, you want to take this?
Yeah, okay. With regards to the compulsory license, yes, we were given 3 years to exercise the compulsory license. It has expired, but last week the cabinet has actually extended because we still have the stock in our pharmacy to us to continue. So we are still using a compulsory license. And now we have a compulsory license and a voluntary license. There will be a competitive market pricing until a day, just like what we did for hepatitis or for HIV, when the price of voluntary license is much cheaper than compulsory license. Then I think there's no reason for us to use the compulsory license anymore. So this is where you can see that to float the competitive market pricing, compulsory license and voluntary license, we can bring down the cost further. So I think so this is mainly for Sobovuvir. So we hope that the processes will, we have approved, MPRA have approved ravidasvir, so I think it will take a few months for us to make it available in the procurement of ravidasvir in the Ministry of Health. I think probably the last quarter or even next year, we can actually roll out to all our clinics in Ministry of Health. And we hope that the private sector also can join in, the GPs and etc. To provide this. More importantly is that, high impact, reasonable costs and good outcomes. So now we have addressed the issue of cost, but the initiative is the integrated access strategy to roll out, whether it's the public sector or private sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tan Sri. Next question, all the way from Radio France, from Gabriel, directed to Dato Dr. Radzi. The question is, the state of mind of the people who underwent the clinical trial. How did they feel to be part of history and all that detail? Maybe you can sum that up for Gabriel. Dato Dr. Radzi, please.
Thank you, Gabriel. Well, when we first started the clinical trial, i.e. the STORM study using SOF and ravidasvir for hepatitis C, that was before the compulsory licensing. So you just can imagine, these are the very fortunate people, because we don't have the easy access to the treatment for hepatitis C at that point. They were of course ecstatic and also very, very thankful for being enrolled and having the opportunity to have the first treatment. And what more, I mean, the treatment is so tolerable, not much of side effect, and they are curative. So this is amazing. I mean, they're all very, very grateful for being enrolled into the study. And subsequently, we have what we call this the FIND study, where we are focused more on decentralization. Again, we are talking about people, especially those in the community. They have easy access to the treatment and also to the testing. This is what I said in my briefing just now about the FIND study. This is more of the how we do the trial with the FIND to do the decentralizations. And all these people are very happy because they have the easy access. And the good thing is that from these two clinical trial, it becomes like a template now as to our guideline on how that we roll out the treatment. So this is what Jean-Michel was mentioning. So echoing again what he has said, translating our clinical trial into the practice. This is something which is very, very gratifying in terms of the practice. Yeah. Yeah, but I think
Thank you.
I hope I answered the question. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Radzi. I actually missed Yoke-Ling's raised hand, but I will, go back to you on the compulsory license a bit later. The next question is actually from Rashvinjit Singh Bedi, the star. When did the clinical trial start exactly? And how many people cured? And how many people are waiting to be treated, and etc.? Tan Sri or Dato? Okay, Dr. Radzi. Okay.
Well, the first clinical trial that we did, which is more of therapeutic trial, is soft and ravidasvir. That was sometimes, I think 2016 or 2017. That was before the compulsory licensing. The total number of patients is about 300 something, but there is a combinations between Malaysia and Thailand, but majority of the patients are from Malaysia. In fact, we fill up the quota almost instantaneously because of everybody was looking forward for this trial and for the treatment. So that's why I think we fill up the quota very quickly. And majority of the patients, i.e. about, I would say 97% overall, and some of the subgroup of the patient, actually 100% cured using this combination, soft and ravidasvir. Within 3 months. So that was the clinical trial. In terms of how many patients, well, at the moment, I mean, we still have to look, the approach now is how to find the missing million or who are the patients in the community in order for us to screen them, those who tested positive, treat them. So this is our strategy now. We have the medicine, we have our ecosystem up and well, not right now. So we just have to move on and carry on. But we have covered most of them up to this stage.
Thank you so much, Dr. Radzi. While I'm always biased towards the journalists, so I'm going to buy them some more time if they want to form and send in a few more questions. In the meantime, to Tan Sri DG, we have seen how with other viruses also lately, that if you do have a clinical trial and that kind of relationship and partnership done, it gives a lot of advantage for other things to come after that, like access and everything. So this new model that has been said by you, by Jean-Michel, would that be part of the mainstream strategy for our public health moving forward? Because people think that, viruses are getting smarter and they're not going to go away. We've got to be more resilient and more prepared. So I'm sorry, I'm asking as a layman. I didn't take pharmacy like Sharifah. So if you can get my drift, is this the new normal for public health and for the administration of public health in our country?
Thank you very much. You see, over the years, we have focused mainly on public health because it can save a nation. And this COVID-19 is one example, in terms of the public health measures. So I would urge the young doctors and, our top performers to to take public health as one of the specialty that it can save a whole nation. And now the public health measures, we are looking into the approach, very integrated approach. And this is important because we also need to look into access, affordability, and availability of the treatment. And now we also need to detect. So our issues now is 75% of those diagnosed, those with hepatitis not diagnosed because they are silent. So now our first is test. We will roll out the rapid test kit in our clinics now, in our primary care clinics. And if you can detect them, then only you can actually treat the patient. So our strategy, the next strategy is to make available the diagnostic testing in our clinic. Second is that to make available the combination therapy, basically is the oral treatment in our clinic. And then this is where our strategy for the next 10 years to move on to make sure that we collect the data and see how we can innovate further to bring down the cost and also the access to our patient. So I think in the long run, you see the cost saving for the country is that if we can bring down or even end liver cancers in this country and liver cirrhosis in this country and liver failures in the country, that is an enormous cost saving for the country in the long run. But again, sometimes we look into the short term, but public health has to look into long-term effect as well. So I think we have to plan our strategy and then bring people on board to see how best we can end hepatitis and the consequences of hepatitis in this country.
Thank you so much for that, Tan Sri. There's a new question from Lo Fun Fong from Free Malaysia Today, directed to Dato Dr. Radzi. How many people have been screened for hepatitis C and how many treated thus far since the compulsory license?
Well, thank you for the questions. The number of people have been screened, I don't have the figure with me right now, but we have screened a lot. I must say the screening has been done at almost all level of the facilities at the moment. I mean, at the hospitals, at some certain procedures, and furthermore at the KK, Klinik Kesihatan. I'm sure they have the figure, but unfortunately I don't have. But I can tell you that we have screened a lot, because every time when we roll out the rapid diagnostic test kit, 10,000, 20,000, they're all just dished out or being used, fully utilized. In terms of the number that have been treated so far, okay, up to about early this year, I think we have treated about 10,000 or probably more already. So it's quite a huge achievement, considering especially with the COVID situation that we have right now, and then we only started sometimes in mid 2018. So I think we'll try to do our best, and the strategy that we have been using is, i.e., we try to decentralize as much as possible. I mean, this is the key strategy. Simplify whatever our work process so that it is user friendly, not just to the healthcare provider, but also to the patient, and also integrations, partnership, getting everyone on board to be involved. So I think that three ingredients will make the project efficient.
Okay, we've heard a lot from the Malaysian perspective. Towards the end, I just want to get our international panel into the picture also. Dr. Sherine, if you can bear with me, I know it's close to just before Subuh there. You mentioned a concert. I have never really come across any readings, even though I'm braving myself to read the journals like Lancet now, because of Tan Sri DG also, partly, because he always quote these journals, so I have to read them. But I've never come across a public outreach for public health, like associated with concerts and at the same time, screening and testing. So can you share with us the creative way of literacy and awareness of getting this treatment, this new NCE for people, the public, the grassroots, to really bring the horse to water? because even if we bring the horse to water, the horse might not want to drink. But Egypt seems to have, broken that barrier by really making the patients themselves or the people themselves in millions wanting to be screened and wanting to be treated. Dr. Sherine.
I think the media is very important, and awareness for the people with how this can affect their life and how they can be taking care of their life. So I think media and this can show the people how can they get treated, because I think if the Ministry of Health is supplying the medicine for free for the people in the hospitals, so I don't think they will bear any cost. So I think going for this, using actors, using singers, using people who are famous, that can make really this happen and getting people to do this. So I think it's very important to do it, and I hope we can also share in the screening in the future with some ideas and some instruments that can make it roll like the snowball in a way, because as Dr. Noor Hisham said, the more we treat, the more we can get the cost down, and also to get down to 8 weeks with newly diagnosed, because the beauty of the new diagnosis is that we can go to 8 weeks. We can go from $300 to $200. And then if we make big amounts, we can go down to the $100 he said. So I think that's the way to get people who believe in the cause, who have a mission, from the celebrities in the country, and I think there are a lot, football players, singers, actors, that they can speak in the media and say there is a dream and we can make the dream come true. The political will is there, the medicine is there, the doctors is there, the diagnostics is there, and we can open some door for donors, because when we started in Egypt, we said if you can pay nothing, pay nothing. If you can pay $1, pay $10, $1,000, just put in the box something so that we can do it. And singers can make concerts for free, go and make the analysis and attend the concert. This was very effective in Egypt. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Sherine. I would like to bridge that to Jean-Michel before I give every panelist one last point to make, about maybe 1 minute each. Jean-Michel, it's not just for the horses to go and drink the water. It's not just for the grassroots, but public leaders, leadership of nations around the world. We are so used to the West, to the East, that even though we are airing this digitally and theoretically everyone can access it, but we are fighting against the narrative that quality are always in the West, high tech is always in the West. So how do you think the literacy and awareness of this should go and be blown across the South countries and societies?
Yes, it's really an issue. We talk about decolonizing the global health system, and I think this is typically touching on that issue, that people in the global South feel they have no value in bringing new treatments. And I totally disagree, and this is what we have proven here. But it takes a lot of leadership, a lot of political leadership, as well as working together. But what's more important is to have a lot of people that recognize that there is quality, there is potential to deliver treatments. I mean, look, if you are waiting for, we can maybe talk about the elephant in the room here. Look at the access to COVID vaccines, how difficult it is. And that exemplifies the challenge that middle-income countries especially, but also low-income countries will have in accessing vaccines, but treatment. Think about dengue. Think about antibiotics. There are so many challenges. And if countries in the global South or low and middle-income countries do not come to terms with the fact that they have a potential, especially higher middle-income countries such as Egypt, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, those countries can make a difference. China, India, of course, but those countries are giants and they can develop their own ecosystem. But for middle-income countries such as Thailand, Malaysia, Egypt, they need to work together. There is no other choice in developing new treatments, new antibiotics, dengue treatments. And I hope we see that more in the future. And I hope what we have done on HCV will inspire people.
Okay, thank you very much. So one last point to be made. only short one, 30 seconds to 1 minute each. Tan Sri, DG, if you can please lead the way first.
All right, thank you. As Nelson Mandela said, and I quote, in the beginning, everything is impossible until we have done it. Alhamdulillah, we are blessed with with our partners, namely DNDi, Fine, Pharco, Pharmaniaga, and Third World, and etc. But I would like to take this opportunity to appreciate them, to recognize all their contribution, and certainly working together, we can make the impossible possible. And again, this is a very exciting journey and become a role model, not only for hepatitis C, for other diseases as well. So how can we, handle, detect, and diagnose and treat other diseases based on this model? This is a very exciting, integrated access strategy that will probably help us to end certain epidemic or even diseases in this country. Thank you.
On behalf of all Malaysians and South communities of the world, Tan Sri, I am single-handedly representing them to say thank you for all the efforts you've done to make that possible. We know it was not easy, and I have to go ladies first for this. So, Saudari Sharifah, can you please?
Okay, for us, I just have one thing to say. When we were approached by Pharco and by DNDi to join this, what they call as a public health focused partnership with an aim to produce an NCE at the cost of a generic, we thought that's an interesting model. But the word that I want to use here is noble. This mission that we are embarking on is a noble mission, right? Because it has the aim of increasing accessibility of treatment to the masses. And honestly, it bodes very well with Pharmaniaga's mantra of having passion for the patients. You used the word earlier, Ken. But personally, for me as a pharmacist, knowing that we are developing a new cure, that's very meaningful for my profession as a whole. So I think if we could take this model further, we are all on board to make sure that accessibility of medicine will be the key element for all of us. Thank you very much.
So just like what DG said to young doctors, then I guess you are also saying to young pharmacists, just do also research and development, don't just go and dispense. I have to give Yoke-Ling because I owe her. I didn't see her raise hand. So I give you 30 seconds extra. Okay, go ahead, Yoke-Ling.
Thank you very much, Cam. I just want to say that, as somebody working with civil society, both on policy issues and bringing together different expertise, we are a big community. We are the ones who, those who need the treatment directly and those who want to work with the government to actually have the right policy and law in place, and also to really recognize that if we don't have the industrial policies that allow us to build our own industrial capacity, then we will not have that freedom to invest in public health. And we in the civil society community, we have always advocated for public health systems. I don't think that any one of us, with what's happening now with the pandemic, will ever question the need to invest in public health. So the mantra that the DG has been saying, for a long time, invest in public health. This is what we want. We need a public health system. And with hepatitis C, we've seen if it's a public health issue, the only response is a public health response, which means the institutions and public funding means is you and I as taxpayers, right? And I think this whole thing about costing it, affordability is key, because when we started this journey for hepatitis C, we had no treatment, too expensive. Now we have multiple options, voluntary license, compulsory license. And as a lawyer, let me tell you, you can have compulsory license and voluntary license at the same time, perfectly legal. And the last bit to the media, I remember in 2003, when we first did the first compulsory license for HIV, the headline said things like breaking patterns. Fast forward in 2017, compulsory license gives hope. And I think for the media to also understand the science, the technical, and the law, so that what we're doing is perfectly legal, is the right thing to do. So thank you to everybody, and we continue the journey together.
Thank you so much, Yoke-Ling. So what that means is, if you are, IP trade international lawyer, give DG and his team the tools to fight this for us. And Jean-Michel, I know you're raring to go, but the early in the morning, Dr. Sherine with his sidekick, Dr. Yasir there. 1 minute of last point for you.
Last minute, I'll say the lessons learned from the Egyptian story from A to Z. A, affordability leads to access. B, believe in the cause. C, create the rules of the game. D, direction and political will is the clue. E, ecosystem formation. F, funding till the snowball rolls. G, government support research. H, harmony between team members. I, infection control. J, join the right people together. K, knowledge transfer. L, logistics and economies of scale. M, media for education and motivation. N, NGOs partnering. O, organize, organize, organize. P, proper planning prevents poor performance. Q, quality, safe, affordable medicine. R, R&D is the way out. S, strategic fit. T, tour and cure is an alternative. U, United Nations umbrella. V, values, love, trust, and just. W, will comes first. Y, yield analysis and data management. Z, zigzag pathway, go under, go through, but never give up. Thank you very much.
Dr. Sherine, you have to send a direct message to me on that. I will probably only get 10 of it, but I will never look at
and
A
this
to
is
Z
the starting point. This is
Yes.
the starting point.
Got
We
it.
have to go for oncology the next trip.
Yes.
And
Okay,
together
will do.
we can. Yes.
Yes. DG is nodding his
DG,
head
are
because
you
I
in?
said yes. Okay.
Great. Thank
Before
you.
I go to Jean-Michel to, wrap it out South way, Dato, Dr. Radzi, the human factor and you can never be separated. So please, your last 1 minute.
Thank you, Ken. I probably going to consolidate what I have said just now. Again, that the fact that hepatitis C is curative. So this is something like a miracle. It's a God gift to us, an opportunity to treat our patient. So we have to exhaust every maneuver, every innovations, every steps, every effort, endeavors, all this effort all together in order to make sure that the drug is accessible because it's treatable and tolerable. And we are very lucky in Malaysia because the drug is free, accessible. So I also would like to take this opportunity in the presence of all the media here that you also can help to disseminate this very important information to the public. So we hope so that Malaysia will be able to achieve the eliminations by 2030. I'm quite optimistic that we will, probably earlier with all the efforts that have been going on right now. And also we try to help other countries as well. How best that we can also get the drug access to them. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Radzi. Would you have imagined that Jean-Michel of Dr. Radzi saying all that just a few years ago? Look how happy you have made him, curing us, the sick. So last 1 minute to you, Jean-Michel.
No, I would never have believed that, never, because I think when we started with the clinical trial, we didn't know where we were going. And then we ended up with a full-blown access strategy, which is amazing. I think health is really a common good. Health is about people. Otherwise, what's the point of having treatment if they cannot access people? And the current model of R&D is failing so many patients. It's failing, especially the poor patient, but not only. Antibiotics, HCV with too expensive drugs, cancer drugs too expensive. There are so many issues where the current model is not delivering. So we need to have new model. And as we can see today, it's about people again. It's a group of people that have teamed up together and worked together across country and made this access strategy possible. So health is a common good, and it's all about us having the trust, the belief that we can make a difference in finding new ways to develop treatments. DNDi is just one model. There are other models. We need to invest in these new models. We need to find new ways of bringing the treatments that people need.
Thank you so much, Jean-Michel. And it's hard to beat Tan Sri DG, but I'll try to come close. He quoted a very inclusive global figure, so I'm going to quote another. This was about 55 years ago at a Medical Committee for Human Rights Convention in Chicago, United States of America. Dr. Martin Luther King said this: of all the forms of inequality, injustice in health is the most shocking and the most inhuman because it often results in physical death. Nearly 60 years later, this is resounding true, but superheroes, the Avengers of Hep C, from Tan Sri DG to Jean-Michel to Yoke-Ling to Sharifah to Dato Dr. Radzi and of course Dr. Sherine have all made this possible. So I would like to thank all the frontline journalists that still has to go despite whatever the situation the country is to work and put this story out. So we have given you material for the story for you today. And with that, I would also like to thank on behalf of all nations and societies of the South, all the clinicians, all the researchers, all the investigators, all the doctors, administrators, regulators, NGOs, civil society, any good human with heart for humanity that prove that we, despite the odds, humanity still trumps money and power and will help make the sick and the one whose life are threatened smile again healthily, as you've seen in the world premiere of the documentary. So thank you so much to all. Thanks to all the media personnel here. Thanks to DG. Thanks to Jean-Michel. Thanks to Sharifah. Thanks to Dr. Muhammad Radzi. Thanks to Yoke-Ling. And of course, our 6 hours behind early morning Egyptians. Dr. Sherine, you can see, but I can spy with my little eye, Dr. Yasser, every step of the way. Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone here, MOH, to DNDi, to TWN, to Hospital Sultanah Bahiyah in Alostak, my kampung also, to Pharmaniaga and Pharco. Good night and goodbye. Good day for those in our time zone. Good morning to those in Egypt and everywhere you are, because we have just changed the world for the better, starting from here, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Thank you.